All right, let's talk about memory. We're going to dive into the science behind it to answer one very specific question. What is the absolute best way to remember a list of items in perfect order? We're going to put 4 ancient techniques to the test and see which one really comes out on top. You know the feeling, right? You've got the grocery list in your head, the key points for your presentation, maybe the steps to a recipe. You know all the pieces, but that one crucial item right in the middle, poof, it's just gone. It's this unique kind of frustration, needing to recall things not just what they are, but in what sequence. The good news? This is a solved problem. For centuries, people have come up with some incredibly powerful mental tools. We call them mnemonics, to tackle this exact challenge. Today, we're pitting 4 of the most famous rivals head-to-head in a scientific showdown to see which one is truly the king of ordered recall. Okay, first up, we've got our baseline contender. Simple imagery. This is probably the most straightforward advice you could get. If you need to remember the word apple, well, you just picture an apple in your mind. It's simple, it's intuitive. But is it really powerful enough to maintain a specific order? We'll see. Next, we've got a technique that takes that simple imagery idea and kicks it up a notch, the link method. So instead of just creating these individual, separate pictures, this method asks you to weave them into a story, linking the image of one item directly to the next, like you're forming a continuous chain. So let's say your list is keys, phone, wallet. You might imagine your keys physically unlocking your phone screen, and then the screen opens up to reveal your wallet inside. The whole idea is that seeing one image should automatically trigger the next one. It's pretty elegant, but as we're going to find out, its design has a potential critical point of failure. Our third contender is the peg system. Now, this is where things get a lot more structured. I want you to think of it less like a chain and more like a sturdy mental coat rack with a specific, numbered hook for every single item you want to remember. This method is all about building a robust framework from the get-go. So here's how it works. First, you memorize a preset list of these pegs, which are usually rhymes for numbers. 1 is a bun, 2 is a shoe, 3 is a tree, and you just keep going. Then, you create a really vivid image of each item on your list interacting with its numbered peg. So your first item gets hung on the bun, your second on the shoe, and so on down the list. And finally, we have the heavyweight champion, the most famous mnemonic of them all, the method of loci, which you probably know as the MemPalace. Yeah, this is the technique of legendary memory athletes and, a certain fictional detective. So instead of using number rhymes, the method of loci uses a physical space you know incredibly well. Your house, your daily walk to work, your office. You take a mental walk along this predetermined route, and you place the image of each item at a very distinct location. To recall the list, you just walk the path again in your mind and see what you left there. So there you have it, our 4 rivals, imagery, link, peg, and loci. They all sound pretty good in theory, right? But personal stories and anecdotes, that's not enough. We need data. How do we scientifically prove which one is actually the best for remembering things in order? Well, let's dive into this. We're going to go back to a classic, really foundational paper in the psychology of memory. This experiment, published way back in 1980, created the perfect arena for our memory showdown. It was specifically designed to separate the good from the great when it comes to ordered recall. The setup was just beautiful in its simplicity. They brought 5 groups of students into the lab. One group, that was our control, was just told to repeat the words over and over. The other 4 groups were each trained in one of our contender techniques. They were all given the same task: memorize a few 20-word lists. But, and this is key, there was one critical rule. And here it is. This is the crucial part. This wasn't a test of just remembering the words. It was a test of remembering their exact sequence. You only got a point if you put the word in its correct slot, from 1 to 20. This strict positional criterion, as they called it, is what makes this study so incredibly powerful. So the stage was set, the participants were trained, the lists were memorized. Now for the moment of truth. After all the tests were scored under that super strict rule, what did the data actually show? When it came to remembering the words in perfect order, the results weren't just a little different between the groups. The difference was, frankly, dramatic. So if you look at the raw data right here in Table 2 from the study, your eyes are immediately drawn to two clear frontrunners. In those immediate recall columns, you can see the average scores for the loci and peg groups are just miles ahead of everyone else.
And this chart, wow, this really drives the point home. I mean, it is not even close. The loci and peg methods are playing a completely different game, recalling an average of about 13 or 14 words in the right spot. The link method is a distant third, and just rehearsing, it's left way, way behind in the dust.
And this graph brilliantly illustrates why they were so much better. This is called a serial position curve. It basically shows the chance of remembering a word at each point in the list. And those two lines way up at the top, consistently high from beginning to end, that's loci and peg. They didn't just help with the first or last few words, they gave a massive advantage all the way through the list. Okay, so the results are crystal clear, but the real lesson here is in the why. What is it about these two structured methods that gives them such a huge, commanding lead over the others?
It all comes down to one word: structure. See, the loci and peg systems give you this pre-existing, solid mental framework, a set of locations or a list of numbered rhymes. Each memory is stored independently. If you forget what you placed at location number 7, who cares? You can still just walk to location number 8 and grab that memory. But with the link method, your memories are this fragile chain. If one link breaks, the rest of the chain can be lost forever.
The study's author, Rojiger, puts it perfectly. With loci and peg, your ability to recall the 10th item doesn't depend at all on you successfully remembering the 9th. That structure provides independent ways to get to each item, which protects your whole list from a single point of failure. In the MemPalace, it turns out, has a biological secret weapon. Modern neuroscience shows us that the method of loci is so ridiculously effective because it taps directly into the hippocampus. That's the part of our brain that evolved over millennia to be an expert mapmaker and navigator. We're basically piggybacking new memories onto one of the brain's oldest and most powerful systems.
So we have these incredibly powerful techniques, they're validated by a classic study, and now they're even explained by modern neuroscience. This isn't just theory, this is a practical toolkit. So how can you apply this the next time you need to remember talking points, or a shopping list, or the steps to assemble that new piece of furniture?
Look, the main takeaway is this: always choose the right tool for the job. If you just need to remember a handful of things and the order doesn't matter, sure, the link method is probably fine. But for that common and crucial challenge of remembering things in perfect sequence, the science is clear. A structured mnemonic like the method of loci or the peg system gives you a scientifically proven superior advantage, period.
And this leaves us with one final thought. These are ancient, human-centric techniques, right? But as researchers right now are applying these principles of spatial memory and structured recall to artificial intelligence, it really makes you wonder. As we master the architecture of our own minds, what new frontiers could we unlock in the minds we're trying to build?